Hi everyone, welcome back and thanks for joining. Today we're going to be looking at a bigger example of painting fruit slices. I won't be going over all the details here, but if you're interested, click the link in the description for the previous video where I go more in depth. If you're enjoying the content, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe and like the video. We're going to start with a really loose sketch, just circles of different sizes and shapes. I'm also going to add kiwi slices and grapefruit to this video, so I've added a few colors to take care of those. I'm going to start by painting the center of the kiwi, so I'm taking a little bit of sap green and a little bit of cadmium yellow and lots of water to get a really light yellow hue. Now we're going to move on to the first layer on the oranges. Again, if you haven't seen the previous video, it's a good explanation of what I'm doing here, but essentially you're just kind of scribbling within the fruit, leaving some white spaces to represent the highlights on the fruit, and making sure that some areas are a little bit darker, some are a little bit lighter, but again, basically just scribbling. The next color I'm painting though is the grapefruit, so I'm using a violet toner color, just a light pink, to do the same technique that I did on the oranges, just with a different color. The slices are a little bit bigger because they're grapefruit, but it's essentially the same thing. Now we're moving on to the kiwi. It's not something I had done before, so when you're doing this, it's kind of important to just mess around and find what works right. In this case, I was doing strokes inward, leaving some white space again for the same type of shine, but the texture of the fruit is different, and I try to mimic that in my brush strokes. Now once the first layer has dried, we're going to add a second, darker, more saturated color to all of the fruit pieces. So just take your original color and just use more pigment in it this time. One thing I like to do is switch between the parts that I'm working on while I let the other parts dry. So I've switched over and I'm drawing the seeds on the kiwi in that case while the rest of the fruits dry. Then lastly, I'm moving on to a few parts of the paper that I haven't filled in, and in this case I've layered a lot of the fruit slices on top of each other, so there's going to be darker areas beneath the fruit that's stacked on top of them. In this case, I pretty much just started at the color that I used on the second layer of paint. You're going to continue to add darker layers here, so it's not too important where you start. Here I'm adding the peel to the oranges and the grapefruit and the kiwi. The orange and the grapefruit's just kind of a dark orangey color, and the kiwi is a really dark brown color. I start light and then continue to layer up as I go. As I let some parts dry, I move on to some shadows. So if you think about, again, the sun or the light coming from the upper right, the shadows will be cast to the lower left. And like I've mentioned before, shadows aren't just straight black. You have to think of it as just a darkening of the underlying color. So for the grapefruit, it's going to be a dark purple instead of a bright pinkish color. For the oranges, it's going to go from an orange to maybe a dark brown. And so you have to think about that when you're layering your shadows in place. I'm going to continue to add more layers to the shadows, especially to the bottom layers. So these are probably under 2 layers of fruit slices above them. They're going to be quite a bit darker than those that are exposed to the light on the first and second layer. The last pieces that I'm really going back to darken are the kiwi slices around the edges. And these are going to be a much darker brown, closer to a black, but still just a dark brown. And I'm darkening up some of the cast shadows from the kiwi slices as well, just to add some more contrast and interest to the piece. I think one of my favorite parts about this is that when you look up close, the details are not all that important, but as you back away, the picture really starts to come together. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and press that subscribe button. It really means a lot to me, and I enjoy having you here. Let me know in the comments if there's anything else you want me to paint. And until next time, check out my channel for more videos and tutorials. Thanks!